In the serene suburbs of Florida, an unsettling mystery awaits. A seemingly ordinary 41-year-old mother, struck down by an inexplicable, paralyzing illness. Within mere days, her two teenage sons find themselves in critical condition, ensnared by a deadly, invisible assailant. In the heart of this medical nightmare, a startling revelation emerges: the family has fallen victim to a calculated and lethal poisoning. All eyes turn to an unexpected character in this chilling drama, a Mensa member, known for their exceptional intellect. But what led authorities to this unlikely suspect? As we delve deeper into the shadows of this enigmatic case, brace yourself to uncover the mind-boggling intricacies of the Mensa murder that shook Florida to its core. This is the story of the Mensa murder, a tale of poison, mystery, and the pursuit of justice. Welcome to Insight Wave, the channel that delves into both solved and unsolved cases from around the world. If you haven't already, please take a moment to like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest crime stories delivered straight to your inbox. Two families live next to each other amid the orange groves of the tiny town of Alturas, Florida. In one house, mine worker Pereirlin Pi Carr lived with his wife Peggy and their children from previous marriages. Even though they had only been married for a few months, Peggy suspected her husband of having an affair. There was also frequent strife among the children, who were in their teens and early 20s. In the neighboring house were George Trapal and his wife, Dr. Diana Carr. George was a chemist and Diana an orthopedic surgeon who people said dominated George. Both belonged to Mensa, a society for people with high IQ. George Trapal and Diane Carr were also hosting Mensa murder weekends in its home at Alturas, with other Mensa members. The Carrs were often disturbing Trapal with loud music and constant troubles. The two families confronted each other on a dozen occasions. It seemed that Diana and Peggy's stepson, Dwayne, were frequently at odds. And on one occasion, Peggy and Diana had a ferocious altercation over Dwayne's alleged bad behavior. Peggy Carr worked in a local restaurant. One day her daughter, Sissy, visited her at work. Peggy complained she didn't feel well, and Sissy urged her to go home. Her youngest son found her lying on a sofa, unable to speak. Her family rushed her to a hospital. At the hospital, doctors spent 3 days running tests but couldn't find anything wrong. They suggested that perhaps Peggy's symptoms were psychosomatic, all in her head. But her symptoms slowly disappeared in the hospital, so the doctors sent her home. The symptoms returned almost immediately. Again, Peggy couldn't speak. She was able to write a note saying, "My feet are killing me." As they drove Peggy back to the hospital, her son Travis and stepson Dwayne both started feeling a burning sensation in their own feet. Now doctors suspected poisoning. They thought it might be a metallic substance like arsenic. But when Peggy began to lose her hair, they suspected the poison was thallium. Peggy slipped into a coma, while doctors put Travis on a respirator. Peggy died in March 1988 after Pi allowed the hospital to take her off life support. Detectives tested the Carr's well water and dozens, if not hundreds, of items around the house. They found no thallium until they noticed an 8-pack of Coca-Cola under the kitchen counter. 4 of the bottles were empty and all 4 contained traces of thallium. Product tampering is a federal crime, so the FBI was now involved. They found that someone had deliberately opened the bottles in the 8-pack. Since no one else in the area developed symptoms of thallium poisoning, investigators concluded that someone had targeted the Carr family. It seems that George was immediately considered a suspect after responding to this police question. Why would somebody want to poison the Carr family? Trapal's response was, perhaps someone that wanted to get them to move. According to investigators, this conversation was the reason they focused on George Trapal and dismissed other suspects. George Trepal was an intelligent but passive man. Even the Carr family thought he was harmless. But George Trepal wasn't harmless. A self-taught chemist, he had a 1975 conviction for manufacturing methamphetamine for sale. When questioned about the Carrs, he was nervous and complained at length about things that seemed trivial to detectives. Detective Susan Gorek befriended him and got to know him well. She went undercover for 9 months to try and find clues of Trepal's guilt. She sent a letter to Trepal under the alias Sherry Gwynn, posing as a Mensa member wanting to participate in the event. Police laid an elaborate trap for Trepal, making it look like Gorek was someone in need of help, in danger from an abusive husband. Police laid the trap, but it did not work as expected. Gorek kept calling Trepal after the Mensa weekend, and Trepal tried to help her with her fake husband issue. Actually, he did, as he found a way for her to claim another identity and disappear into another state. Not what the police expected or wanted. Police didn't have enough evidence to order a search warrant all that time. So, when Trepal moved out in 1990, Gorek asked if she could rent the house. Trepal agreed, and Gorek moved in. The police then searched the whole place without a need for a warrant. In the garage, they found a bottle containing thallium. Gorek visited Trepal again, and chatted with him at a cafe, perhaps as a last attempt to extract an admission of guilt. This conversation convinced Gorek beyond doubt that Trepal was the murderer. Gorek's last conversation with Trepal. Gorek, I think you neglected to tell me something. Trepal, oh, what's that? Gorek, that something had happened in the neighborhood. A lot of well-meaning people scared me out of my wits. Trepal, oh yeah. Somebody got poisoned next door. Gorek, that might not be a lot to you, but it's a lot to me. Trepal, oh, well sorry. Gorek, you weren't afraid, were you? Trepal, no, apparently it was some sort of personal vendetta. I mean it's not like, they're running around poisoning everybody. After this, and the bottles that were found with poison in his home, they arrested him and charged him with murder. They also found a room in his house full of BDSM paraphernalia. The supposedly meek Trepal appeared to have a vivid fantasy life. George Trepal refused a plea deal that would have sent him to prison for life. Instead, he went to trial. After a lengthy trial, the jury decided by 9-3 and recommended George James Trepal the death penalty for the murder by poisoning of Peggy Carr and attempted murder of more members of her family. The court accepted the decision, and Trepal is on death row since then.